So we'll get started with this. My name's Kirby Jones. I'm the Executive Account Manager for Network Dynamics Corporation, and I'd like to welcome you to our presentation. A lot of you have been past Open VMS customers, and so we have a new set of products that work on a multi-platform environment that Don Strom, our Technical Support Manager, is actually going to present. And it'll provide you with a lot of the functionality. Some of our prior products add in some new things that you may not know about. I also want to introduce Annette Welton. She's our Senior Open VMS Accounts Manager and Transition Manager. So she helps people, not only with VMS, but people who are transitioning to other, or migrating to other platforms too.
Thank you, Kirby. I'll just turn it over to Don, so we want to get people going here.
Excellent. All right. Over to Don. Thank you all for waiting.
I'm going to share my desktop. So the main product we're going to show you today is a product called Sysgem. Runs on the interface runs on Windows, and it's able to monitor and manage Unix and all flavors of Linux and VMS and Windows systems and a few other operating systems as well. You can have all different user names. You can set up different users in Sysgem. I'm going to log in as system, so I have access to everything. But you can limit access for specific users to just certain parts of Sysgem, and they're only allowed to, you can have a Linux manager who can only access Linux systems using Sysgem, and you can set somebody else who can manage only certain Windows systems. You can be very specific about who's allowed to do what and what kind of access they have, read-only access or full access. I'm going to log on. It goes out and it reads in everything I'm allowed to do as system. And it's going to load up my menu over here with what I'm allowed to do. Sysgem installs a little, very lightweight agent on the target systems that you want to monitor or manage. And then all the communication is encrypted between the interface here and the agent. And once you have the framework installed, you can do all kinds of things. You can do account management, you can do system management, you can do SNMP stuff. First thing I like to show is account management. This product is very easy to customize. So I've got a slightly enhanced version of enterprise accounts that I'm using. I've got a couple of Linux systems that are actually over in England that I have access to for the demo. I've got some VMS systems, and I've got unfortunately I don't have Active Directory on my network here, but I have a couple of Windows workstations that I can access. So I'm going to connect to all these machines and look at the user accounts on all these machines. And there's all the Demo Linux 1 users, the Demo Linux 2 users. There's one of the VMS systems. It's an VMS Itanium system. There's one of the workstations, Windows workstations. There's all the users on the other VMS system, and there's the other Windows workstation. So once you have all the accounts in the display here, you can sort by any column here easily, and makes it easy to, like somebody has accounts on various different systems and he leaves the company, you can select all his accounts, and then you can, with a right-click menu, you could delete them if he's permanently gone, or you could just disable them. If he's forgotten his password, you can set the password on all his Unix and VMS and Windows accounts all at once, so he has the same password on all. It's a great tool for the help desk to be able to set the password. Depending on what kind of account, you can go in and do things like fix quotas. There's various stuff you can do. If you wanted to modify the account, if you double-click, you pick one account and you double-click it, make sure the double click actually took there. And it brings up, this happens to be a VMS account, so I could change just about anything about the account, the UIC, that's the user identification code. I could change anything about his password, directory, any account flags, and the available flags are all there. Since presumably nobody's a VMS customer, let me pick someone who's let's see. Let me pick a Windows account or a Unix account here. Here's a test account. So if I double-click for a Linux account, I can do things like change the password, change which group he's a member of, change the supplemental groups that he's a member of. I can change his directory, change the expiration on the account to be a different expiration. If it was a Windows account that I pick, let's see, let's find a Windows account. Let me sort by this here. So if it was a Windows account here, I could take the guest account, for instance. And if I double-click, it brings up the choices for a Windows account. I could change the name, whether it's disabled or not, whether it expires or not. I can change the password, stuff about the profile, the groups he's a member of. Anything where there's a canned list of possibilities, you get one of these nice list box type things. Change whatever global groups. I could change the rights of the Windows account. If I had Active Directory, this would list all the Active Directory accounts. So you can multiple select and do things. You can change a single account. One of the things I like to do when I show this is I like to sort by the failed login count. And we noticed that the first time I did this, I noticed that somebody had been using a dictionary attack, password attack on an account somebody set up called user on one of our VMS systems and had racked up 12,000 failed attempts. So as soon as I noticed that, it was enabled at the time. I just went in and disabled the account right away. It's very easy to set up filters. Right now we're looking at 307 accounts. The red X means it's disabled. The green check means it's enabled. But I might only want to look at the enabled accounts. So if I apply that filter, now I'm down to just 160 accounts that are actually enabled. And then maybe I'll sort by the last login here. And I notice there's enabled accounts that haven't logged in since the 1990s or since 2008. Now, if I had a read-only access to this display, like I was a security manager and I had been set up in Sysgem to have only read access, then what I could do, the security manager could select these accounts that haven't logged in a couple of years, and he can go up here and he can export the information, and he can export it as HTML or Excel or Word or a text document, and then he could email this off. Let's make it a little bigger here. He could email this off to the system manager and say, you know, what's with these accounts that haven't logged in since 2008 or before? You know, can we get these accounts disabled? So it's really easy to export the data. And the other thing we can do with this is we can create accounts on multiple platforms at once. So I just pick which systems I want to create the account on. It can be Linux, VMS, Windows. Just pick which ones I want to create it on. I give it a name, test 1302, whoops, 227. And then I can apply defaults, and it'll set up some things up. I can say the account expires. I can make it expire on, let's say, tomorrow. And I can say whether I want it to start disabled or not. And then for Windows, I get to pick things like the home directory, the which groups the person's in, which supplemental globe groups the person's in, whether the password's pre-expired. I can go set up personal information and even more personal information. If it's a Unix account, I can pick an unused unique UID for the person. I can decide which shell he's going to use as a default shell, what account type it's going to be, any supplementary groups the person's going to be a member of. And then for Unix, I can set up the directory, VMS. There's various things you can set up, all the different quotas and stuff for VMS. If you're also running Exchange, you can set up all the Exchange stuff at the same time. And there's more Exchange data. You can configure in more Exchange data. Now, if you have a typical non-privileged user, you sometimes have to create a non-privileged user account. You can set all this up the way you like it for Windows and Unix and Exchange and stuff, all the typical settings, and then you can save that as a template. So next time you need to create a non-privileged user, you just load in that template, and everything is set up. You just have to fill in the username and tweak whatever settings you want to tweak for the person. But you got so you can save a template for your basic non-privileged user. You can have a template for your basic privileged user, whatever. You know, if it's a college, you might have a student template and a faculty template and a staff template, or whatever you want to do. And when you're all set, you got it the way you want it, you just can create the account with just apply, and it'll create the account on all the systems at once. So that's a quick look at the account management. If you want to know more about this particular account here, there's a little binoculars that brings up everything that's known about that one account on whichever operating system. There's a lot of stuff here you can see that's some of the stuff is for like AIX only, but it brings up everything that's known about the account. Also, you can configure the columns. There's all kinds of columns available here depending on the operating system. And then you can just configure it to the way you want it with the column order and which columns are displayed. So you get the important information over here on the left. So that's a very quick look at the account management abilities of Sysgem. So I'm looking only at privileged accounts, enabled accounts right now. Maybe I only want to see the privileged accounts. So I could apply that filter, and now there's only 62 privileged accounts. But maybe I only really want to see the privileged accounts that are enabled. And if I do that, I'm down to there's only 21 actually enabled accounts that have raised privileges. But we notice there's still some that haven't logged in since the 2008. So that's a point of concern. So there's a quick look at account management. In the account manager package, there's also the development has mostly been customer-driven development. Somebody needs something, so we develop it. So there's we've developed stuff for various applications. There's Exchange display. There's a Lotus Notes. There's a couple of displays were developed for Lotus Notes. There's Oracle displays for Oracle accounts and stuff. somebody wanted some SAP. It's very easy to develop these things and customize them to do exactly what you want them to do. So that's a quick look at account management. The other thing I'll show you is system management. And if we look at functions here and maybe disks, all platforms, we can look at disk usage. And if I pick which systems I want to look at, let's see, this system is not on, but we'll look at all those systems. And it's going to show us the disk usage. Goes out and grabs from each system all the disks. And there I can sort it by the use percent, and I can see I've got some pretty full disks here. On the backup is pretty full, and it's very easy to set up alarms. So that I'll show you one here. We've got one here, 75%, and basically you give the alarm a name, and then the criteria is just based on the date in any column or combination of columns can trigger an alarm. We've got this set up where we're looking at the used percent column, and if it was a text column, we could match on either exact text or the text contains or the text does not contain. If it was a time and date column, it could be, more than blank in the past, less than blank in the past, more than blank in the future, less than blank in the future. Since this is a numeric column, we're just matching on a value here, greater than 75%. It could be greater than or equal to, less than, equal, So you just set up the criteria that are going to trigger the alarm. Based on any column or combination of columns, you just can add more criteria here. And then you decide what actions you want to take when the alarm goes off. You can, Sysgem keeps an archive, so you can add it to the archive, or you could stick it in the event log of the system. There's a log file, so we could stick it in the log file. You can decide if you want to play a sound. The typical thing you do with an alarm is you run a script that'll send an email. And you can say how often you want the thing to repeat. One of the interesting things you can do is you can run a script over on the target system so that if the disk is full and if there's certain files you would delete out of a temporary directory, or if you would just move files off to some long-term storage disk array or something, if you know what you would do, then you can tell it that when the alarm is triggered, just go off and run the script. And then we have the agent script here. And for Windows, it would be a Perl script. And you just write whatever Perl you want to have run over on that system to delete files or move files. Or if it's Unix, it would be a Corn shell script. For VMS, it would be a DCL script. So you just write the script you want it to do. And under actions here, you tell it you just run that script over on the target system. And so you'll get an email telling you the disk was getting full, but by the time you get the email, it's already done some action. And the script can just do anything you want it to do. And then...
how frequently is it pulled?
I'll show you that in a second.
Are you pulling that data from...
There's a... I'll show it to you in a second. So you can set up who gets the email, and you can have different schedules where somebody gets it on the weekends, somebody else gets it during the day, and somebody else gets it at night. You can just decide on the schedule here who gets the email when. Like I say, it's very easy to customize. So, I mean, it's a very open architecture. So all the scripts for the alarm it's all right here. This is the script that runs on the Windows system here. You can tweak it to do something additional if you need to. If you have the right privileges and rights and stuff, you can go in and tweak these scripts and like I said, and then the script that runs in the agent. The answer as far as, so that's how easy it is to set up an alarm. This interval thing here, setting right here, tells it how often to refresh the display. Since this is disks, it's currently set up to be every 5 minutes here, every 300 seconds. But you could do it every 10 minutes, every hour, whatever. You just set the interval to be whatever you want it to be. And that's, you can always force a refresh if you want to force a refresh. But that's the answer to how often it pulls the data, is you can just set that. So then the other one I like to show is something like the under performance, we've got all platform. We've got the top CPU. So I'm going to pick 3 of these systems. There's a Linux, a VMS, and a Windows system. And I'm going to look at the top 5 processes, how much CPU the top 5 processors are using. And I want to see the process ID of the processes. So it'll run out, and this is set up to refresh every 60 seconds. For the demo, I'm going to knock it down to maybe every 3 seconds. We'll get a fast refresh here. And so here we can see 44%. The top 5 processes are using 44%, 46% over on the Map PC. And we see Search Indexer is using 22%. AT Manager is using 6.1%, 12.2%. You see the top 5 processes and how much total CPU they're using on each of these systems. It's very easy to add a chart to any display. You just you basically tell it what column you want to chart, and I'm going to tell it to use the CPU percent, and it just creates a chart, and it starts populating the chart with 1 line per system here, showing the top 5 processes. These tools on the right are the charting tools, and it's very easy to set up auto archiving. So you just tell it how often you want it to open a new archive file. 12 hours, every 24 hours, every 8 hours, whatever. You tell it you want to archive the chart data. You just tell it where on this Windows system you want to save the archive, and it'll just archive the data. So then you notice that yesterday around lunchtime, the system got really slow. So you just go back and you open up the chart for that day, the archive for that day. And then these are all charting tools, but the one I like is the information tool. And you position anywhere on the chart, and it shows you the top 5 processes, the process ID, and the percent CPU that was being used. So you go back to the chart for yesterday at lunchtime, and you can look and see which process was using all the CPU. We see this little peak here. Chrome was one of the biggest. As soon as this moves over a little bit more, we'll be able to see the full picture. But very easy to just create a chart for any display that has a numeric column, and then it's easy to archive the data from that chart. So we can see here Chrome. Well, we're almost over far enough to see. Chrome is using, looks like 20-something% of the CPU here. You can always force a couple of extra refreshes to move the chart over more. The other thing you can do is you can zoom the chart, and that'll make it easier for me to see. So 20% Chrome, 17% Search Indexer, 16% the Avast service. Anyway, you can see it's easy to make a chart. And then there's just all kinds of stuff has been developed here. For Exchange, there's displays that have been developed. Display Exchange data. SQL, MS SQL, there's a bunch of displays have been developed. Oracle, there's a ton. Like I said, just customer driven. So some Oracle customer wanted a bunch of displays. So the displays got developed, a whole bunch of them for Oracle. And Sybase, somebody wanted Sybase. So displays for Sybase were developed. Same thing here. You can see the under databases. Performance. Another one I like to look at is processes, and like NT, we can look at the NT processes. There's the two NT systems, and there's all the processes, so I can sort by something like sort by the CPU time, and I can see that search indexer, and this is, you know, the biggest user on this system here was Cubby. And again, there's additional columns that I could display, and I can arrange the order of the columns. Easy to filter, easy to set up alarms. If somebody's hogging too much CPU, set up an alarm to alert you. I think there's, you know, you can do services. That might be fun to look at. Let's pick the Windows systems and look at the services. So there's all the services, this, you know, status. What else we got here? Anyway, it's easy to customize. Customize the display, set alarms on the displays. We've got a couple other. Any questions about account management or system management before I move on? Another couple of things that have been done. Once you have this framework, you can do all kinds of things. So they've developed a password synchronizer where somebody changes their password in Active Directory on Windows, and you can propagate that password change automatically to VMS, to their Linux accounts. So the password always matches. They don't have to individually update their password. So that's an automatic password synchronizer that got developed. Another
so how's that? Is that driven by the user changing their password? How's that driven?
Yeah, when they change their password in Active Directory, the change gets intercepted and then passed on to Unix, VMS, several other operating systems we support. And you can also, for the password synchronizer, you can develop your additional scripts. Like they developed one for Oracle, so the guy's Oracle password could be updated at the same time. And if you had some other package or application that had its own username and password, you could update the password for whatever it is you want to.
And so Sysgem, I guess, I'm assuming it runs with an elevated account.
Yes. Yeah, the agents are the agents are fully privileged accounts. Yeah.
You have to be able to change passwords and.
Yeah, they all run with the agents run with administrative privilege. All the communication between the agents and the GUI is all encrypted.
Right.
It was originally developed, the product, one of the first customers in the early development was the Swiss government, and a lot of large financial institutions use it. So from the bottom up, security was a major concern, and This version of the framework uses a shared key kind of encryption, proprietary encryption, and some of the financial institutions requested an SSL version of it, so there's now an SSL version of the framework for people who would prefer the communication be done over SSL. The agent communication that can be. There's a version of the framework that uses SSL for the encryption. Developed particularly for Unix and Linux, there's a file synchronizer that makes it very easy to monitor configuration files for changes, for like unauthorized changes. You can capture a file that you want to use as your master, and then you can set it up so that if there's expected differences between systems, it's easy to. I'll show you just. I've got a simple one here. I took an XPlanet FX configuration file, and I turned it into a master template file, and basically you give it a title. You tell it the default location of the file on each system. And then if there's variables that you expect to have different on each system, you can set that up. Like there's a system here in Clearwater, Florida, so I set the latitude and the longitude and the GMT offset for that system. And then there's the system in England, in London, I set the GMT and latitude and longitude, and then there's one in Liverpool, so I set the latitude, longitude, and GMT for that. And then you can see this is the expected data in each of the files should look like this, except when we get to the latitude, longitude, and GMT, then it'll substitute the variable there. So you're allowed to account for differences in the file, but then you can just go out and synchronize your target systems. And you say which systems you want to check, and it runs out and checks to make sure those systems match the target. And if I was to go out there and change one of those files on, let's say, Demo Linux 2, well, Demo Linux 1, that'll do. I'll go out and I'll look in temp, file sync NDC, XPlanet, FX conf. So if I go in here and edit this file and I change something like, let's change auto start to 120. And I save that. And now if I rerun this, synchronize the target file, it'll show me that Demo Linux 2 still matches the template, but Demo Linux 1 is different. The file does not match the template file. So I can say, show me the differences, and it'll run out and shows me that auto start is 120, but it's supposed to be 60. And if I don't like that change, then I can just say update target file, and it'll run out and force the file back to the approved version of the file. And so that was developed mainly for Linux, where there's lots and lots of text configuration files that you might want to keep synchronized or make sure they all conform to your approved version of the file, your master. But we have found uses for it on VMS or Windows, and it's a nice product. So, like I say, once you have this framework, what you can do with it is only limited by your imagination, pretty much. It takes about 10 minutes to install a demo on like just on a laptop or something, you could see it at work on your own network. Agent installation takes, maybe 5 minutes. The whole installation of the GUI and everything takes 10 minutes. So in a very short matter of time, you could be checking out how this looks on your own system, if anyone was interested. And I'll be happy to handle any questions anybody has.
All right, any other questions for Don? Also, let's see, so we've gone over File Synchronizer, we've gone over Password Synchronizer a little bit, and then the full Sysgem engine. Any questions on any other attributes or features that you're wondering if the product does or not, or any more granular concerns you have? Or?
So on the that CPU top processes demo that you showed there, you'll have the, I guess in general, do you have the ability to like dashboards or anything like that? You're not you want to look at critical systems.
Having trouble hearing the question.
Sorry. Do you have the ability to set up dashboard type things for a lot of people to drill down?
They have what they call sessions, where if you have several of your displays here that are like your favorite displays, you can set those up. Like I have these displays open right now. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those, or 5 of those. I could set it up as a session, so I can just open that session and have those 5 displays open. This one here, if let me see if I as far as drilling down into this further, no, this is just once the data is in the display, you get a right-click menu that may have, whatever choices you decide. Like on the NT processes display, I can go in and right-click this, and I could end the process. I could change its priority on an NT process. Those are the things I'm allowed to do. On the disk usage, I don't think there's a lot I can do on the disk usage, no.
What about the tasks and virtual desktop tabs down there?
The tasks let you do things like there's just some task you want to do on several systems. It's easy to set up a task. I think I have some saved here. Let me see. I've got one called let's see. Basically, you just write the script you want it to do, and then you tell it which systems you want to do it on. I could do it on both Linux systems here. That guy's turned off. I won't try to access that. And then it'll just run out and run that task on each of the systems, either in sequence or in parallel, depending on. So it's just any sort of tasks you want to set up to run on multiple systems. For VMS, somebody asked for this. They set up a nice thing here with you can save like your favorite 9 commands and then just execute that command on the systems.
So it does it on. So it'll do it kind of sequentially on multiple systems.
You can tell it to do it in sequence, or it can do it in parallel.
Okay.
So, yeah, you know, if there's some command you just typically need to run on all 27 systems nightly or something, you can automate it this way.
What about that virtual desktop?
The virtual desktop, it's kind of antiquated at this point. They've got a newer version they're coming out with, but it basically lets you. Let me see. I don't have access to Gandalf. Let me see if I edit that one. Let's see. Let's see. They have a newer version of this called Remote Desktop that they've been working on. So I haven't messed with this very much.
So what's the newer version do?
Well, the newer version is for Windows, and it's very much just gives you access. It's like a remote connection, gives you access to the other system's desktop.
Right. Is it and it? I assume that's within your network, right?
Currently within the network. What they're doing is on that product is they have customers with wide area networks that they don't like using products like Log Me In or Go to My PC, right, because the server belongs to somebody else that all the data is going through. So they're going to market the server itself, so you can have the server on your own network. So instead of going through Log Me In or going through Go to My PC server, you can have your own server that's used for all the remote connections, even outside your local network.
And is there a client then on the workstation?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The thing about the virtual desktop is it is multi-platform, so you can access a Linux desktop or a VMS desktop using this product. The newer one they're working on is currently Windows only.
Okay.
But I think there's a little bit of reporting. Let's see. For NT, you can create reports about accounts, user rights held by accounts. There's various, for Unix, there's accounts and groups. So if you just want to report rather than a display, we can get the user rights held by accounts. We would tell it to use the Windows systems, and we would grab, it runs out and grabs data. Once you've got the data grabbed, then for the Mac PC, I can create a report here. We we did somebody wanted a very fancy report thing for VMS, so we created this. It's very easy to develop these displays. This did not take a lot of work. They wanted to be able to filter accounts by any of these categories, so we just have it set up where they can filter the account by captive, by dormant, by the account status, account expiration, any of the account flags, the password status, any of the account privileges. VMS has rights identifiers, so you can filter accounts by any combination of these things. Like I want to look at dormant accounts that have certain privileges, so I say use dormant accounts as a filter and use privileges as a filter. Then I go to dormant accounts and I say I want to see accounts that have not logged in for 90 days or more, and then I go to the privileges, and for VMS you can just pick which privileges you want, and then it just creates a report of all the accounts that have not logged in that have those privileges. This was done for VMS, but it would not be hard to make this work similarly for we could do something for Windows or Unix here that does a similar, multiple filters can be applied to filter out just the data you want and create a report. We had it set up, you can pick which fields you want to display, you can order the fields, and then you can save, you get a report you like, you can save it as a favorite report so you can recall that report again. Like I say, it's very easy to develop displays, it's very easy to customize the data in the display. You can write your own right-click menu items, and it's very easy to install and test on your own system.
I'm going to have to drop off. I've got to go to another meeting, but I'd be interested in seeing. You said you're doing a recording of this?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'd be interested in seeing the recording.
Sure. Kirby, you got who that is?
Yeah.
This is Tim, right?
Yeah, that's Tim. Right.
Sure, Tim.
Okay.
I'll send you a copy of the recording.
Good deal.
No problem. Thanks so much for attending. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, I'll follow up with you a little later this afternoon. I'll get that over to you.
Okay, sounds good.
Great.
All right, that's about it for the demo.
Any other questions? Anybody, Arthur? Any questions you have, or?
No.
Okay, good.
I'm very happy to help anyone who wants to install.
Yeah,
it takes about 10 minutes.
Yeah. Anybody wants to install on their system, we're willing to help them too. Just we can walk them through in about 5 or 10 minutes. A test version. All right. Well, thanks so much for attending, and Arthur, appreciate your time. And I'm not sure who all is still here. Is French? Are you there at all, or we got like one other person, or is that? All right. Well, thanks very much. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.